Online, there has been controversy with a recently released sequel to a popular game, with Subnautica 2's early access dropping on Steam, and pretty quickly some players were upset with certain aspects of the game along with the EULA. In gameplay, players noticed there was no way to fight or kill the fish in the game despite the fact that the fish can fight or kill you. And the devs even responded saying the game is meant to represent a world with less guns, and people should learn to adapt rather than try to conquer and dominate. Additionally, parts of the EULA made the rounds, and that includes sections where you don't own the game but rather license it, along with them having legal claims over mods, stating that streaming and recording and content creation around the game would require disclaimers, and a bunch more, but some online said that this is just a standard protocol for Steam releases. But there's lots to get into, so let's just jump in. Welcome to the internet versus Subnautica 2. It starts when Pirate Nation tweets out, "The developers of Subnautica 2 want to keep the game non-violent like the first one. They want players to adapt and live with the ocean creatures instead of fighting or killing them with weapons. This core idea started years ago when studio founder Charlie Cleveland chose to leave guns out of the series after the Sandy Hook shooting. He wanted the game to feel like a peaceful exploration of nature rather than adding more violence to the world. Even though fans from one country overwhelmingly asked for the chance to craft weapons in the sequel, the team says this will be a repeated point of resistance." One developer explained, "I think it's a point of resistance that we'll get repeatedly while making the game, though we feel strongly about it. So players must instead use smart tools, evasion, and distraction to survive." And Rappy replies, "What is this? This is supposed to be undersea simulation, not Europe simulation where you can't fight back." Deep Winter says, "Such a take, but totally on brand for a progressive. The monsters can kill you, but you can't kill the monsters trying to eat you because that would be bad." And Bally Belly says, "Animals simply existing in their natural habitat aren't monsters, you stupid. The player that crashed down into their world is the monster, and they have every right to defend themselves just like a bear or any wild animal when you encroach on their space." Annoy says, "Forcing players to adapt instead of just shooting everything makes you actually respect the ecosystem. You have to learn behaviors, find new creative solutions, work with the environment instead of dominating it." Josie quotes the post by saying, "Replies are full of gamers who don't understand that the entire series is about environmentalism. Lamau, media literacy at its finest." Amorphous quotes the post and says, "Add a plethora of aggressive creatures that notoriously spawn camp bases, provided no tools to deal with them. Top tier game design right there." Spooky says, "People who don't make games that sell millions of copies in a day sure love to give their game dev opinions." And Amorphous says, "I don't have to be a chef to know when a part of the meal doesn't taste good." Grums tweets out, "Subnautica 2 is a pacifist ideology woven into a game. Players have noticed you cannot defend yourself against attacking fish, not even in self-defense. Only passive means are available. This was by design. You can't kill anything because the devs feel it would support gun violence and aspects of colonialism. Subnautica is one vote towards a world with less guns. A reminder that there is another way forward. We want people to feel like they're learning to adapt to the world rather than being a conqueror or a dominator. We aren't a killing game. Go play Sons of the Forest or something if you want to kill." The anti-violence stance got stronger from Subnautica 1 to 2, which now has a complete no-kill policy, even when the fish can still kill you. And Dimko's Kneebones replies, "It's not that deep. Plenty of survival games don't have weapons. Play Outlast. All you get is a flashlight. You're just milking the algo on a trending topic." Evie quoted Scrums by saying, "Notice how Subnautica 2 actually released?" Schmorgv says, "No guns or balls and people lose their shit." Over on our Subnautica Little Appointment posts this image with the caption, "IGN posted their Subnautica 2 review." And it's this post of a game reviewer saying, "For bad, there's too much water." And Rude Ice replies, "That could genuinely be an IGN review. They get reviewers that have seemingly never played any games in the genre before, or just hate video games in general." And Fem Fuyu says, "Their Alien Isolation review still haunts me." And Chicken Noodle Sleuth says 100% they had someone play who didn't know what they were doing. Then a mod was made and PC Gamer posts a clip of it with the caption, "Subnautica 2 mod lets you kill all the fish you want." And it's this clip of a weapon and shooting the fish. And Magnolia quotes the post by saying, "This genuinely turns my stomach. Like, what do you mean you're just killing them for the fun of it? The game has built-in mechanics to let you deter these things. You don't need to kill those animals when you have no real reason to. And Bad Radman says, nothing more annoying than a hammerhead deciding to make his new home right next to your base, hanging out next to the moon pool, constantly trying to mate with my tadpole. If I could kill it, problem would be solved. The Suited Bird quote tweets this post of an unrelated game with guns on an island. In the caption, what the Subnautica 2 devs think we are asking for when the community asks for the ability to actually defend yourself to some degree like the first game. And Thomnia tweets out this meme of someone playing Subnautica and the caption, the highest rated EA launch in a long time, and then thinking, I need to find a way to be offended over this. The fish. I can't kill all the fish. And Nobody Is Our Guy quote tweets him saying, the more I dig into the Subnautica discourse, the more I'm realizing that the universe is just incompetently written. Yes, we know there are giant monsters who can rip through tungsten like paper, but you can't shoot it because there was a genocide 400 years ago, and guns bad. Hugh quote tweets the clip by saying, yay, now I can live out my internal white colonizer desires of genociding everything that mildly disturbs me. Yippee, yahoo! Pirate Nation also tweets out, Subnautica 2's Steam EULA is getting huge backlash. On first launch, players must accept a detailed end-user license agreement, and players are worried after read them. The agreement grants a license to play the game rather than transferring ownership. It includes restrictions on streaming, screenshots, recordings, and certain types of content creation or monetization, often requiring disclaimers. The publisher retains the right to revoke access for specified reasons. Terms may be updated unilaterally, with users expected to review changes. The agreement covers data collection practices involving personal and device information. It addresses ownership of player-created content, modifications, and related materials. Additional clauses address liability limits, dispute resolution through arbitration in California, and prohibitions on certain software tools, VPN use, and other activities. The game has achieved strong reception overall, with very positive Steam reviews and high concurrent player counts. Unknown Worlds Entertainment has noted that it is reviewing player feedback on the EULA. Some players have requested refunds after reading the EULA, while others just say the terms are normal with industry standards. And Asuka replies, the people who are saying, oh, that's just the standard now are idiots, and the reason why everything is so Maywin says, if buying the game doesn't promise ownership, then piracy isn't stealing. And Jackson Richards replies, this will forever be the dumbest argument. And yet people who want to justify theft are quick to use it like some magic slogan. And Maywin says, here, I'll dumb it down even farther for you. You can't steal something that's impossible to own. Bublik quote tweets the post by saying, do you understand what happened to Subnautica 2? A game that was genuinely loved, very positive reviews, record player counts. People were excited. Then they read the EULA. You don't own the game. You have a license that can be revoked anytime. They collect your personal data and device information. Streaming and recording require disclaimers. Mods you create inside the game, they have legal claims over. VPN use is banned. Disputes go to arbitration in California only. They can change any of these terms whenever they want without asking you. People started requesting refunds not because the game is bad, but because they finally read what they agreed to. The game industry has been doing this for years. Subnautica 2 is just the first time enough people paid attention. And KB replies, so just like every other digital download, you haven't owned a piece of media since discs went away and you rely on a server to give you the up-to-date information constantly. And Bublik says yes. And nobody fought back then either. Look where we are now. Then this screenshot of the developer started making the rounds and Akaba Rock posted on the piracy subreddit with the caption, Subnautica 2 dev response to someone who pirated the game before release. And it's Anthony saying, it took some doing, but this guy self-reported. Thanks for pirating a game that I've spent years working on. I'm disappointed that you do that when it's kind of how we make our living. I hope you rethink your life choices. And the rogue hippie says, has a developer being anti-piracy stopped anyone ever? Might as well be talking to a wall. And Sean Pleased Disable PvP says, it's ironically the opposite. There's been devs who don't give a shit about piracy and people decided those guys are cool and bought their games. And Kingsins says, way back when Remedy said they were fine with people pirating their games, I waited for Winter Sale to buy Alan Wake after playing through the pirated copy. I already bought Slay the Princess by default because I really love the game and I think the team is doing great. But it was also nice to hear they don't care about pirating and just want people to experience their games. It's definitely a plus for me. And if they are chill with piracy, that means they won't go to great lengths to make the experience miserable for people who bought the games legit too, with forced online features or awful DRM DRM. Cough, EA, Capcom, even though I buy their games by default because they have been delivering bangers, etc. Shoebox Child says, isn't this the dev that fired the team that was promised like 6-figure bonuses so that they couldn't get it anymore? And then started using AI in the game or something? And Thick Mountain says, a blatantly incorrect accusation getting 300 plus upvotes is such a Reddit thing to happen. And Geostar clarifies saying, the devs were not responsible. The publisher Krafton attempted to force the game to be delayed so they wouldn't have to pay those bonuses to employees for meeting a quota. They fired the lead dev, but recently were ruled against by a judge for it. Now the lead dev is back in his position and they have control over development taken from Krafton. DMX Spy says, that guy, as if they didn't make a ton of money from Subnautica 1 and DLC. Pirates are going to pirate, and most pirates won't pay for it in the first place. If people like the game, they will pay for it and support the developer, but definitely pirating it and not buying it with that attitude. Also, many people in foreign countries can't afford 30 USD games, so they should just never play the game. Them. Then over in the r Subnautica subreddit, Horny and Here's to post another Discord message by the Anthony person with the caption, Subnautica 2 developer confirms that he's read all of the Reddit comments about pirating the game. And it's him saying, just to be clear, pirates are going to do their thing. We were all kids once. Money and the economy is very hard. I get it. It wasn't the piracy that bothered me. It was the people that flagrantly walked in here and wagged it in the faces of people who were waiting to play legitimately. That was the part that aggravated me. That and the Reddit responses that keep talking like I'm a millionaire. I'm very much now. I don't own a home. I rent. There's a lot of misinformation going around and we just want the best launch possible for our people. All that to say, I understand and thank you for supporting the studio ultimately. I cannot condone piracy, but I get why people do. I would much rather people buy the game, try it for an hour, and return it than go play it illicitly. And Decide iMaster says, W response. And Julius Pepper Woodchie says, the way people will assume they know the finances of others is really wacky to me. And Term Bob replies, people are just absolutely dumb as shit. They see something successful / popular and immediately assume every person involved with it is some rich person trying to nickel and dime everything. It's nothing but naive kids who think they understand the world. Flapjax says, I was on Team Pirate the shit out of it until I learned about the developers being fired and replaced with AI issue being set straight. Bought it and played for about 20 minutes earlier. We'll probably wait for full release to complete the game. And Zelo replies, I grew up pirating games. I had almost zero money and wanted to play games. I didn't try to justify it as some kind of moral crusade against the bourgeoisie like modern pirates always seem to. Now I have disposable income and an understanding that I am not entitled to enjoy other people's work for free, so I either pay for games or don't play them. And Icy Indication says exactly the same here. I will say that I approach music, shows, and movies differently, but I do try to support the ones I especially care about where I can. When it comes to games though, I haven't pirated ever since I started working. In my situation, the only use case I suppose would be to act as a demo, but you can already get that experience with the Steam's refund system. Over on the R Gaming subreddit, Tyler 4-tier photo posts this with a caption, Krafton will likely have to pay $250 million in bonuses for Subnautica 2 that it tried to avoid. When Krafton acquired Unknown Worlds Entertainment back in 2021, part of the agreement indicated that a major bonus would be offered if certain revenue targets were achieved. According to the stipulation, if developer Unknown Worlds Entertainment earned more than $69.8 million in revenue, its new parent company would have to pay $3.12 for each additional dollar of sales, with a cap of $250 million. Given the game has already reached 1 million players and many more will likely pick it up over the weekend when there's more free time, things are looking good for the developers who were promised bonuses. And Eanes Greens quotes that part and says, is this worded correctly? They have to pay 3x each dollar of sales? And Balthasar X says, yes it is. Krafton really did not think that deal through when they made it, which is why they resorted to the tactics they did to try and hurt Unknown Worlds. And Zudziv says, it sounds like the CEO thought, I'll lowball them on the upfront cash and make a crazy promise on incentives that they can't refuse. But they'll never hit that target, and if they do, I'll weasel out of it. That'll make me look like a genius to everyone. And that backfired in the most amazing way. Bioeradication says, the CEO is frantically asking ChatGPT how he can get out of this, again. An Ambitious Address says, I like the idea that if he did this, there's been so many articles about how dumb the CEO is, that ChatGPT would probably cite him as an example of what not to do. And Lexinoz says, wasn't this the guy who declined legal aid and planned to use AI for his counsel? And I Wanted to Be Duck says, his legal aid said no, you can't get out of paying them. He went to ChatGPT and tried. It told him the same thing. He kept prompting it until he got the answer he wanted, went to court, and Subnautica 2 also made a statement on their Twitter saying, "We just posted a letter from the Subnautica 2 team to the community, addressing some key feedback since launch." And on their website, they have it titled "A Letter to the Community from the Subnautica 2 Team," and it says, "Hello Subnauts, first, thank you for taking the time to share your feedback with us since launch. We have been reading your reviews and comments carefully, and we understand that there are several concerns we need to address more clearly. We also understand that some recent comments from our team made players feel ignored or dismissed. We are sorry for that. Early access should be a conversation with our players, not a one-way explanation from the development team. Your feedback matters, and we do not want any part of our communication to make the community feel otherwise. There are 3 areas we want to speak to directly. First, we understand that creature balance needs work. Right now, some predator encounters feel more frustrating than tense or exciting. Mitigation tools are not always clear, reliable, or satisfying, and players do not always have enough confidence in how to respond when a creature attacks. This is not the experience we want. We are actively working on improvements to creature behavior and player mitigation tools. Upcoming changes will include adjustments to creature aggression timing, aggro range, flare effectiveness, survival tool effectiveness, and creature interactions with vehicles and bases. These changes will be delivered over a series of upcoming patches. Second, we have heard of the strong request for more direct ways to deal with hostile creatures, including the ability to kill them. We understand where that request is coming from. When avoidance and mitigation tools do not feel effective, it is natural for players to want a more decisive solution. Our current direction is not based on judging players who want combat, and it is not because we think those players are wrong. Subnautica has always been built around vulnerability, exploration, and survival rather than traditional weapon-based combat. We believe that this is part of what makes the game unique. However, that design only works if creature encounters feel fair, readable, and engaging. Right now, we know we have more work to do to achieve that. Third, we want to be clear about how we view early access. Early access is not only about collecting bug reports, it is a collaboration with the community. We will not always be able to make every requested change, but we do have a responsibility to listen carefully, explain our decisions respectfully, and show through our actions that player feedback is shaping the game. In the coming weeks, we will be delivering a series of improvements aimed at addressing the concerns we are hearing from this community. We hope those changes will demonstrate that we are listening and that we are committed to working with you to make Subnautica 2 the best game it can be. Thank you again for your honesty, patience, and passion for the game." And Raidmaster replies, "What about the EULA? Did you forget about the biggest part of what's making people angry?" And Drag says, "No one cares about the EULA. It's the same EULA every game has had for 10 years. Ren says, "Not being able to kill fauna in Subnautica 2 feels like a needlessly artificial restriction on what is supposed to be a player-driven sandbox game in a living and breathing world to me, even if I understand the intent behind it. You could kill fauna in the first Subnautica, however it was never incentivized and often avoided anyway. The same goes for the knife, which was a useful tool for gathering certain resources, and the thermoblade was especially useful if you needed a quick meal." And Vessel says, "Do people want to play Doom but underwater? Why does everyone want killing so bad?" Shout out to our tier 3 members, internet representatives Kiko, Salsoud, Coldest Bandito, Captain Crash Out, Dearboy, Noobster, and Mr. X. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I'll see you all in the next episode.